Hello, everybody. My name is Kavin, and my presentation is on Mullerian Aplasia, a genetic perspective. A little about me. My name is Kavin again. I am a senior at Bothell High School in the Seattle area, and I am really passionate about gynecology and obstetrics, and I feel like it's a very important topic to expand on and share with a lot of people as it affects a huge number of people in our population. It is something that we should very much speak upfrontly about. So I just wanted to bring awareness to one of the many different types of conditions that many women go through. So to start off, what is Mullerian aplasia? It is the congenital underdevelopment of a female reproductive system. It affects both the uterus, cervix, and vaginal canal. On the right, I have a diagram of what the full reproductive system looks like for a female at birth. And it's very important to understand that the fallopian tube and the ovaries do not have anything to do with this condition. It affects the uterus, which is over here, along with the rest of the canal. Symptoms for this include primary amenorrhea, which is a lack of menstruation, meaning there was never a time in this female's life where she ever started her period. Some kidney issues can also arise, which will be discussed later on in the presentation. A fun fact, which I did not think was even possible, was that 1 in 5,000 females get this condition. And honestly, that's a lot more common than you would think. I thought when I first heard of this condition that it would be super rare and it's not very heard of. But turns out there are thousands of people, probably just where you live, who suffer from this condition. So for the process of diagnosis, these are some of the red flags that you would find. Number 1, and probably the most obvious, you never reached menarche, which is also meaning they never had their first period. The average female usually starts her period around 10 to around 13 years old, with the usual being around 11 to 12. Diagnostic testing can also show deformities. For me personally, I found the MRI, which is figure 2, to be a bit more easy to understand. So we'll go through that first. Over here, if everyone can see my mouse, this is where the bladder is, and we're looking at this being the front portion of you, and then this being your back. You can kind of see the spine, and it's all over here. This is your bladder, and then this would be the rectum. As you can see, there is no uterus, which would be in between both of those parts of your body. Since there is no uterus there, you can start to find out that this patient might have Mullerian aplasia. Along with that, with this ultrasound being a bit more hard to understand, you can kind of see that there is no uterus. But due to the fact that it's a bit more convoluted and you have to really know how to study sonography to understand, I personally find MRI to be a little bit easier for you to tell first glance. Along with that, some other ways to find out is that you'd either have vaginal obstructions or a shortened vaginal canal. This shows that there probably isn't any more canal left and that there's some sort of deformity going on. That's one of the main symptoms, physically speaking, that you can find if a patient has Mullerian aplasia. Methods of treatment. Although it is important to understand that Mullerian aplasia is a condition that very much affects your ability to have children, it is not something that will greatly affect your life other than some minor kidney issues if you have some. Again, it's important to highlight that the people that do have Mullerian aplasia cannot have children at any point in their life due to the fact that they either do not have a cervix, vaginal canal, or a uterus, some of the most important components of carrying a child full to term. Some very important ways that you can get treatment are some ways that you don't even need treatment, meaning you can go for other ways of pregnancy going through surrogacy. Majority of cases, since Mullerian aplasia does not affect this, the fallopian tubes or the ovaries, is that there's not usually very many negative effects to the eggs. So your cells in the female at birth are usually just fine. For non-surgical options, once again, you can have surrogacy or you can have vaginal dilators, which is what figure 1 is. It looks a little painful, but it seems to have a pretty functioning vaginal canal at the end of your treatment. Basically, how the entire process works is that Yes, it's going to be a little bit queasy, but you'd be sitting on a seat with this canal at the top, the opening of your canal, and you'd put the little stump under it, and then you'd sit on it for about an hour, and that creates a artificial canal that makes a partially functioning vaginal canal. The reason why it's partially functioning is because, once again, the important part of having a canal is be able to function during childbirth, but these patients cannot have childbirth. And majority of patients do opt to go for this, with around 90 being the average point. Some surgical options include vaginoplasty. Around 10% of patients opt for this. This is a surgical approach, meaning it does have a longer time for healing and takes a bit more of a, how can I put this, harsher route to having a fully functioning vaginal canal. Once again, it only is partially functioning, but the quote unquote annoyance of having to do vaginal dilators does go away. This is all just quality of life improvers, but it does not, unfortunately, bring back the ability to have children, due to majority of the time more than one part of the vaginal canal, cervix, or uterus being affected, meaning they all three have to work together or none of them work at all. Now, to the genetic approach. There are two genes that we're going to talk about now, Wnt4 and PAX8. Wnt4 is probably one of the more important ones that we'll talk about today. It is one of 19 in the Wnt family of genes, which controls a large portion of many of your body systems. Some of its gene regulators are EGR1, PAX2, we'll go over PAX8 in a minute, and FOXC2. It is expressed in the following cell types: osteoclasts, which are in your bones, pancreatic beta cells, which are in your pancreas, neural stem cells, dendritic cells, which are all in your brain or in your nervous system, and myofibroblasts. This is a very important part of trying to figure out where in your body all the issues are going on. If you find that Wnt4 is what's affected, some of the other parts in your body systems might be affected along with it. For example, if you look at figure 2, you will see the many other parts of the body that the Wnt4 gene affects. Along with that, something that is a bit cool to me is how when the Wnt4 gene is disturbed, sometimes in very specific order, male to female sex reversal can occur in utero. I just find that very fascinating, and it's so cool how one gene can change the sex of a child. And once again, it may occur, it is not definitive. Another gene that we'll be looking over today is PAX8. This is where we were going to come back to with the kidneys. The PAX8 gene is crucial for kidney and thyroid development, which is why people that have Mullerian Aplasia might have ongoing kidney disorders at the same time, due to that gene affecting both things. It is a very important gene for cell proliferation, and some mutations might cause restrictive fetal height, malformed external or internal structures, and neurological disabilities. One of the 9 pair-box family of genes, and PAX8 is one of them. It's an important role in epithelial cell survival, and along with that, regulates apoptosis, which is a very important part of making sure that you do not get cancer down the line. It is also intimately involved in the regulation of the Mullerian duct cells, which is what is affected in utero when you get Mullerian Aplasia. Diving into more of the Mullerian duct, in fact, when you are in utero and your cells are starting to figure out whether you're going to be a female or a male, you either have the Wolffian duct, which is expressed in figure 1, or the Mullerian duct. The Wolffian duct is what gives you all the male genitalia and internal structures, while the Mullerian duct is what promotes the female path. In here, the Mullerian duct is what's expressed, but there are mutations that come along the line, which is what might cause kidney issues as well. Since they're all in the same gene, both can get affected, which is why you'll find many patients with both. So, what did we learn today? 1, this condition is one that might not affect you way too physically, but is very much a mental health issue and creates many confidence problems in many females in the world. It is a quality of life disturber more than a destroyer, and it affects over 1 million people worldwide. There are many different treatment methods for these non-lethal conditions, and it's important to realize that they're just as important as ones that can kill a person later on. The genetics behind reproductive abnormalities are also very intriguing, and it's so cool to see how multiple different diagnoses can all relate back to one gene and one change in the simple line of code in your genetics. And it's cool to see how diagnostic testing can actually help solve medical abnormalities. We also learned so much more about the people around us and in our community, and it's important to be there for all of them. Thank you so much for joining today, and I hope you learned something. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I got a couple questions. There's a question in the Q&A. How can we better raise awareness of this and maybe of women's health issues overall?
That's a great question. For me, I find it that it is an important way to show. Hold on, I'll quickly stop sharing my screen. It's important to raise awareness mainly due to the fact that a lot of people it's quite uncomfortable topic. It shouldn't be one, and it's important to understand that taboo topics like this should be brought out. I personally find ways that are important to like raise about, or in methods of raising awareness per se, is events, honestly. And there are a lot of different clubs out there for like women's health that run events, and they talk more about what to do in different cases. And many different media outlets also identify different ways. And we're not going to get political here, but there are many different people out there who side along with our stories. And it's important to bring awareness to that and spread the knowledge that we all have. And for women's health overall, get involved. It's an awesome way to get involved. Me personally, I volunteer at a women's pavilion, so I am consistently around women's health, and I learn so much about it every day. And I love sharing all the things I know with the people around me. So that's just one
Wow.
of many ways that you can learn and spread awareness.
Wow, thank you. Okay, here's another question. What is the next question you would pose in this field to continue this research?
Oh, let's see. I'd say one question for sure is I'm really interested in specifically this topic in the way how do so many people somehow end up with the same genetic mutation? Because originally, I think as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, was that I thought this would have been a very rare condition, but in fact, it's a lot more prevalent than one would think. 1 in 5,000 females assigned at birth are affected with this, and that is a very large portion of our population and compared to many other diseases out there. So I really want to know what could be a specific cause to this mutation, and if there's anything that in a way pushes it in certain places. Because one thing that is true is that it is less likely to show in more developed countries, but what is the true reason behind why it shows up in underdeveloped countries, and what could be the maybe external and environmental factors around it?